basic cause of inflammation?
There is a newer technology that's being taught at Harvard Medical School. And we go to my mentor, one of my mentors and my friend, Professor Alessio Fasano. Professor Fasano is a professor of medicine, Harvard Medical School, a professor of nutrition, Harvard School of Public Health, the chief of pediatric gastroenterology, Mass General, Harvard, the director of the Celiac Research Center, Harvard, the director of mucosal immunology, which is the lining of the gut, the lining of the lungs, the lining of your brain at Harvard. This guy has 5 titles. Any one title is a lifelong dream for someone at the top of their field. He's got 5. We think he's going to win the Nobel Prize because it's Professor Fasano and his team who identified in 1997, where does leaky gut come from? And they identified the protein zonulin as the mechanism that causes leaky gut. And for 25 years now, they've been publishing on leaky gut with different diseases, leaky gut with chronic pain, leaky gut with brain dysfunction, paper after paper after paper. Professor Fasano tells us that there is a perfect storm in the development of chronic inflammatory conditions, like chronic pain. There's a perfect storm that occurs that sets you up. And when you understand this perfect storm, then you start asking different questions as to how do I deal with this pain? All disease begins in the, quote, leaky gut.
Wow.
The role of zonulin in the development of chronic inflammatory diseases.
Wow.
All disease begins in the gut. And Hippocrates said that 2,500 years ago.
Wow.
All disease begins in the gut. And we have forgotten, or we've never known this, right? So this comes into the awareness for all of us. So Professor Fasano identified the 5 pillars in the development of chronic inflammatory diseases, and he called it the perfect storm.
Right.
The first of the 5 pillars is your genetics. You can't do anything about the genes that you were given. That's the deck of cards that you got this time around.
Sure.
But you can, and genes don't turn on and off. Some doctors say, well, we're going to turn off those genes. You can't turn off genes. Genes operate on dimmer switches. So what you can do is dim down the genes of inflammation that you may have for breast cancer or for Alzheimer's. You can dim down those genes and you can ramp up the genes of anti-inflammation in your brain or in your body. So you can work with the genes to, and the geek term is modulate, which means just change
Sure.
the genes. And it's, you don't change the genes, you change the expression of those genes.
I see.
How loud are they? And there's about 1,500 genes of inflammation in our bodies.
Wow.
And you want to calm down those genes of inflammation. Now, you don't want to shut off inflammation. Inflammation saves our life every day. We're all exposed to bad bacteria and viruses and things. And the way our immune system protects us is by creating inflammation. So inflammation is not a bad guy, it's a good guy. Excessive inflammation is a problem.
I see.
So the first is your genes. That's the first of the 5 pillars. The second of the 5 pillars are environmental triggers.
I see.
Now that means, and the most common environmental trigger is what's on the end of your fork. That's the most common, but there are many. The air you breathe, for example, we know now, and we knew back in the 1990s, they were publishing the studies, every dog that died and they did autopsy in Mexico City, every dog had evidence of Alzheimer's, every one.
Wow.
And now the technology is available. Every child they check in Mexico City has brain inflammation and evidence of early Alzheimer's, every single child.
Wow.
Because the air pollution is so bad. So what we eat, what we drink, what we breathe, And what's stored inside of us are the environmental triggers.
Got
Right?
it. That's number two. Okay.
Number two. Number three on the list is that the environmental triggers creating inflammation inside our body change the ratio of the good guys and the bad guys in the gut.
Got it.
Many people have heard how important the microbiome is. That's the
Sure.
environment of what's in your gut, how many good guys and bad guys. Some people have heard that over 70% of your immune system is in your gut. It is
Wow.
because that's where we're exposed to the most threats, is what we eat and drink. So most of the immune system designed to protect you is in your gut. So you get this condition of too many bad guys, not enough good guys, because of the inflammation caused by the environmental triggers you're exposed to.
Right.
That's number three.
Got it.
That inflammation creates number four. Now, Mrs. Patient, your gut is a tube. It starts at the mouth, it goes to the other end. One big long tube, about 20, 25 feet long. The inside of the tube is lined with cheesecloth. Now, the importance of that is that when you eat a hamburger, that beef, we chew 3-4 times and swallow. We're supposed to chew 15 times, 20 times, but we don't. Most of us chomp, 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 guzzle, chomp, chomp, chomp,
Sure.
guzzle. But so those big clumps of beef, they can't get in your bloodstream. They've got to be broken down really small. So when you swallow, it's really not in your body yet. It's in the tube.
I see.
If you were to take a donut and stretch a donut out, one big long donut, if you could do that, you look down the center of the donut, that's your digestive tract.
Wow.
So when you swallow food, it's in the donut, it's in the tube, and it's got to go through the walls of the donut to get into the bloodstream. How does that happen? The inside of the tube is lined with cheesecloth. And protein, think of protein like a pearl necklace. The
Okay.
acid in your stomach undoes the clasp of the pearl necklace. Now you have a string of pearls. And it's your enzymes that act as scissors to cut that pearl necklace into smaller clumps. Snip, 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 until you're down to each pearl of the pearl necklace. That's called an amino acid. And the pearls go right through the cheesecloth into the bloodstream.
Got
And
it.
then your body uses them to make new bone cells and brain cells and whatever they're going to do with it. But the bigger clumps can't get through the cheesecloth until they've been broken down small enough. That's the process of digestion. And when they're small enough, then they get absorbed through the donut, the walls of the donut, through the cheesecloth into the bloodstream. That's
Got-
absorption.
Got it.
But when you've got number three, dysbiosis in the gut, all this inflammation, you tear the cheesecloth. Now you've got a leaky gut.
I
And
see.
the larger molecules get through the tears in the cheesecloth before there's been enough time for them to be broken down small enough.
That's a great way. I've never heard it described that way. That's so interesting.
So these are macromolecules, big molecules. They get through the tears in the cheesecloth into the bloodstream, and your immune system, that's number four, the leaky gut. And then your immune system says, what is that in the bloodstream? Your bloodstream's just a highway, lots of traffic on the highway, but your immune
Right.
system is monitoring everything in there and says, what is that? That's not something I can use to make new bone cells or brain cells. I better fight that. Now you make antibodies to chicken or to gluten or to beef or to tomato, bananas. It doesn't matter what the food is. Your immune system trying to protect you is going after the macromolecule that got through the tears in the cheesecloth into the bloodstream. And when your immune system gets activated, that's systemic inflammation.
Got it.
That's where systemic inflammation comes from.
Mm.
All disease begins in the gut.